The Larry Elder Show. The number to call in, 888-971-7243, 888-971-7243. Isn't it amazing how the left always finds God when it's convenient for them? When it's convenient for whatever their policies of the day might be. By the way, my name is Carl Jackson. I'm the guest host sitting in for Larry Elder. The number to call in to the ReliefFactor.com studio, 888-971-7243, 888-971-7243. So you guys heard about this Governor Hochul, right? I have this theory. We touched on this a little bit last night. It's blown up a little bit in media. Tucker Carlson got a hold of it. I know Candace Owens spoke on it as well, but we touched on it last night. But I didn't have enough time to go into detail about this, so I do want to talk about it. And that is the governor of New York, Governor Kathy Hochul, who says that vaccines are from God, and then she wants to send out her own quote unquote apostles to push the jabs. So I want to talk about that. The NBA players are standing up. This has been in the news for a couple of days now. We have some audio clips for you that I want to play. Again, I want to go back to something I wanted to touch on yesterday. Didn't have time to get to it. We'll get to it today. Our hospitals actually being overrun by COVID. I got some numbers for you. Project Veritas has caught J&J employees arguing against children getting vaccinated. There's some Mexican drug cartels that are trying to provoke more clashes between illegal migrants and the Border Patrol. So Biden will force more agents off the line. Oh, and speaking of that, where is that? Did you know that I believe it's the New York Times that has finally admitted or pulled a retraction on the story that Border Patrol agents were whipping migrants? But it doesn't matter now. The story's already out there. Too little, too late. The media did exactly what they wanted to do, or the left did exactly what they wanted to do with this story. The DEA is warning of an alarming increase in fentanyl-laced fake pills. I've been wanting to talk about this for a while. Sean McConnell sent me some material on this. I want to get into that. And then I want to talk about socialism versus capitalism, because ultimately this is where all this stuff leads. You know, I've come to the conclusion. Yesterday, I was just sitting and thinking about this stuff, or last night I was sitting and thinking about this stuff, and I was like, I talked about CRT, and I do believe that CRT is an existential threat to America. And I believe, obviously the borders are, but I think there's a couple of different categories. When you consider CRT and when you consider the vaccines, I almost believe those are blinders in order for the left to accomplish what they want to accomplish, which is to fundamentally transform America into a socialist utopia in their mind. It'll be a hellhole for the rest of us, but it'll be great for people like AOC that can go to $30,000 meals, $30,000 events, and look all fancy and pretty and all that kind of good stuff, while the rest of us try to survive. So I do believe there's a couple of different categories. NBA players are even starting to speak out on these vaccine mandates. I'm so proud of some of those that are speaking out. Our own Jonathan Isaac right here in Orlando, Florida, is speaking out, and he's doing a great job speaking out about that. You guys may have heard today. Did you guys hear that? Did you guys hear Millie? Did you guys hear Millie and what's the other guy, Austin Lloyd? Let me just give you a quick, Lloyd Austin, thank you. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, he has a great voice, but he's a horrible leader. Every time I hear him talk, I'm like, man, if he had the skills to lead the Department of Defense, if his skills were as great as his voice, he'd be dangerous. But that just isn't the case. Let me just share this real quickly before I go on to these other stories. Millie McKenzie say they recommended 2,500 troops to stay in Afghanistan after Biden claims he was never told. So top military officials today testified that they assessed that the U.S. should maintain a presence of at least 2,500 troops in Afghanistan. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin admitted that their input was received by Biden, despite Biden's claims to the contrary. So we know that Biden lied about this. Lloyd Austin, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staffs, General Mark Milley, and head of U.S. Central Command, General Kenneth McKenzie, appeared before the Senate Armed Services Committee today for a public hearing on the Biden administration's chaotic military withdrawal from Afghanistan, basically our surrender. McKenzie and Milley both testified that they recommended maintaining a presence of U.S. troops in Afghanistan. McKenzie went on to say, I won't share my personal recommendation to the president, but I will give you my honest opinion, and my honest opinion and view shaped my recommendation. McKenzie testified, and he said, and I recommended that we maintain 2,500 troops in Afghanistan. McKenzie said he made a similar recommendation in the fall of 2020 under the Trump administration, which also had intentions to withdraw all U.S. troops from Afghanistan, saying at the same time he recommended at that time that they leave behind at least 4,000 troops. He said, McKenzie said, I also have a view that the withdrawal of those forces would lead inevitably to the collapse of the Afghan military forces and eventually the Afghan government. Milley was also pressed on the matter and saying that while he would not share his personal recommendations made to the president, his assessment was back in the fall of 2020 and remained consistent throughout. He claims that we should keep a steady state of 2,500 and it could bounce up to 3,500, maybe something like that, in order to move toward a negotiated solution. This is what Milley said. Biden and White House officials have said repeatedly that no military leaders, all right, catch this, because I'm sure you guys remember hearing this audio. I'm sure you guys remember hearing this interview. Biden and White House officials have said repeatedly that no military leaders advise him to leave a small military presence behind, with Biden himself telling ABC News in August that, I quote, no one recommended a 2,500 troop presence that he could recall. It turns out every single one of the people that had Biden's ear did just that. So Biden just lied to the American public. We know that he's a liar. This shouldn't surprise us anymore. This guy is a pathological liar. I think this is the way he's lived his entire career in Washington, D.C. He's lied. He's been able to get away with it. Look at everything that's happening with his son, Hunter Biden. We can all, the media is just sitting back and pretending as if his son, Hunter Biden, isn't funneling money to his father by using these art deals and all that kind of stuff to peddle influence, get people hooked up or connected to his father. This is absolutely amazing. If that was one of Trump's sons, we wouldn't hear the end of this. Actually, they'd probably be in jail. And all of our bureaucracies or the Department of Justice, whether it be FBI, CIA, I think all of them would be investigating the Trumps. Austin was asked whether the president received the personal recommendations from his top military advisors like Milley and McKenzie, and he said their input was received by the president and considered by the president for sure. This is General Lloyd, or Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. I'm sorry. So that's Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. All of them essentially are either throwing Biden under the bus or saving their own butts, or doing both. The hearing comes nearly a month after the Biden administration on August 31st withdrew all U.S. military assets from the region after having a presence there for 20 years following the attacks on 9/11, and August 26 suicide bombing took the lives, we all remember, of the 13 U.S. service members, including 11 Marines, 1 Navy sailor, and 1 Army soldier. 18 other U.S. service members were wounded. The bombing also left more than 150 civilians dead. Folks, these people just lied to us. I want to tell you this little fact, too. Are you aware that Biden didn't even consult these people that he hired that are incompetent, inept, mind you? He didn't even consult them until literally 10 days or so after his retreat. This is Carl Jackson in for Larry Elder. We'll be back.
You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not.
We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime. I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
We understand that a plane has crashed into...
The people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Biggest and most costly manhunt in U.S. history.
United States killed Osama bin Laden.
There are reports surfacing that Al-Qaeda has placed a $50,000 US bounty on the heads of any U.S. Navy SEALs.
Nobody's going to survive that. There's nobody in that.
This is the single largest loss of life in Afghanistan in a single incident.
Most of them are U.S. Navy SEALs.
We discovered bullets in the bodies of the Navy SEALs. The military threw them away.
More likely than not, that supports a shootout on board.
Anybody out there, we have a fallen angel.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
This is a story of how 1 million children were placed with local foster families through an unlikely alliance between the Chinese government and a British footballer. Parents from all walks of life share their stories of overcoming the one-child policy by taking in orphans. With unprecedented access across the country, this is a unique insight into the lives of the 90s orphans now driving the 21st century's fastest growing economy. This story needs to be told across the world. At a time where there's so much negativity and cynicism, here's proof that a single leap of faith can change the world.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
I grew up poor, which is even worse than being poor.
We would have sandwiches with no meat.
My American dream entailed working hard and making $20,000 a year. But I surpassed that goal and became a corporate CEO.
We'll all be able to say, free at last, free at last.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
You can stop an earthquake. Doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
In the third hour, I'm just looking at all of these things that are occurring, all of these things that the left are throwing at us, and some of them are meant to distract, some of them are meant to be blinders, and I believe that some of them are meant to be blinders that makes them equally as dangerous, but they're meant to be blinders for the left. I mean, they're frustrating us. Things like critical race theory, they're absolutely frustrating us, and I do believe they're an existential threat to America because it pins Americans against each other. And that's wrong. And that's, and that's dangerous. I don't ever remember a time like this, quite frankly, in my lifetime, that Americans have been so divided, amongst issues and where it's not just a division upon issues, but literally just hatred and animosity towards each other. And the Biden administration has, struck this to no ends. And they're intentionally doing so in order to divide us, in order to gain power. But I believe that some of these issues are meant to be a blinder, or blinders rather, for their own voters. The more I thought about this, I'm like, the issue as far as the border is concerned, that's a massive issue. It's hurting all of us. CRT is going to hurt all of us, but the way the left looks at it is, okay, Republicans, conservatives, so on, et cetera, are racist, and they just look through that lens of race, and the left gets them all hot and bothered, and they get mad, and they stop thinking. And that's what the left wants to do. They want to make you emotional. They want to keep you mad, so you you just abandon critical thought. And that's the left's modus operandi. Those things are working. And then you think of the vaccine. Think of what this Governor Hochul is doing. And I'll get back to this story with Millie, because I think this is important to share. And I told you guys that I wouldn't walk away from the Afghanistan story. So I want to make sure that I get through this. But if you just look at Governor Hochul, notice what she did. And I'm going to go back and forth, so just bear with me here. When Hochul says that vaccines are from God, I want you to understand the trick that she's playing. Listen, Democrats, I got to be honest, Democrats, and I'm not talking about the layman. I'm not talking about your neighbor, your friend, your family member. I'm talking about politicians. They don't care about God. They've proved that time and time again. But the unvaccinated thing, it isn't going well for the Biden administration. It isn't going well at all. Biden's polls just continue to tank. I'm talking about every aspect. His polls just continue to tank. This dividing people amongst the vaccinated and unvaccinated isn't working at all, and it's hurting them. So what does Hochul do? Don't think this lady is some godly lady. As a matter of fact, I've got a theory. I've got a theory. Let me say this part first. I'm sorry. I got a little ADD. What Hochul is trying to do is make Christians the new unvaccinated narrative. That's what she's doing. They're just setting us up. They realize the vaccinated versus unvaccinated narrative isn't working like they want it to. That's why they're forcing these mandates upon people. It's just not working, so they're just going to get it done. But meanwhile, they have to create another enemy. Now that enemy is Christians. And let's face it, Christians and Jews and people of faith have been enemies of the left for the longest. I guess we ignored it, but this is something they've done all along. And then they'll just use God whenever it's politically convenient for them to do so. So we'll get into that shortly. This is why I'm proud of some of these people that are speaking out. Let me just offer this. Only 45%, hat tip, forgotten man, only 45% of Americans trust Joe Biden to provide accurate coronavirus information. The left is they're in panic mode. So they're going to do anything and everything possible. And honestly, I'm reading the polls to you because I want you to understand that we need to be joined together, whether we're Democrats or Republicans, and we need to be fighting against the administration because they're against all of us. So this is why I'm reading the polls to you, because I got to tell you guys something. The Biden administration doesn't care about the polls. They absolutely don't care. They're hell-bent on transforming the United States of America. And people like Hochul, listen, I know I'm going to offend some people by saying this, but when it comes to radical left-wing women, I think oftentimes they do tend to be better than men because they want to prove that they're tougher than men. And I'm talking about policymakers. I'm not necessarily talking about all left-wing women, but I'm talking about left-wing radical women like the AOCs, like the Elizabeth Warrens, like the Hillary Clintons. I often like the Governor Kathy Hochul now of New York that's replaced Andrew Cuomo. I think they are hell-bent on proving that they are somehow tougher than men. So in order to show off their chops or if you will, they'll come out with some legislation or some policy that's even tougher just to garner some street cred, if you will, because I feel like women on the left feel like they have to live up to men's standards, even though they say they hate men or they can't stand men or they act like that. And, as Rush Limbaugh called them feminazis and all this kind of stuff. But it's weird because it's almost as if they want to act like men. It's almost as if they want to be men. They want to prove that they're manlier. And I kind of believe this is what's happening with Kathy Hochul. But this is why they have to do it. This is why they're so desperate. Only 45% of Americans trust Biden to provide accurate Chinese coronavirus information. This according to a Tuesday poll by Axios. 53% of respondents said they have little or no trust in Biden to provide accurate coronavirus information. The numbers are a reversal from January when 58% trusted Biden. His numbers are just tanking. So 58% trusted Biden on coronavirus and 42% did not. Biden has also dropped 11 points among Democrats and 17 points with independents. Republicans have dropped 10 points. Americans are also trusting the media less about COVID. Only 45% trust establishment news networks, 41% trust establishment national newspapers, and 34% trust establishment cable news. So this isn't going well. The Axios Ipsos poll comes after a Monday Rasmussen presidential tracking poll revealed that Biden has an overall approval rating of 40%. See, the left is realizing that they have to trap us as voters, if you will, because their policies stink. They know it. People are not falling for this stuff, so they're going to force us into compliance. Only 21% strongly approve of Biden and 50% strongly disapprove. The Rasmussen poll was the second lowest approval rating for Biden. The lowest was the Economist YouGov poll, which we mentioned here on this show, which marked Biden at 39%, and that was back on September 8th. So Biden's failing numbers are the result of independents growing increasingly unhappy with his Biden's Wuhan dictates, if you will. We've been patient. This is a quote from, I'm not sure who this is from. We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin. Oh, this is when Biden scolded 80 million of the unvaccinated, which includes myself. We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin. Americans who remain unvaccinated, he said, declaring they risk the lives of all of us, which is a complete and utter lie. The Axios poll was conducted on September 24th through 27th with 1,100 respondents. The margin of error is about 3.2%. So this guy is cratering. He's tanking everywhere. We'll talk about this more on the other side. This is Carl Jackson in for Larry Elder. We'll be back in a few.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
You can stop an earthquake. Doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
I would like my fellow conservatives, the majority of whom wanted to leave Afghanistan, to be as intellectually honest as I demand the left is. You must say, I am for the Taliban taking over Afghanistan. If you do not say that, you are a conservative who is not being honest. You cannot say, I am for leaving Afghanistan, but I am against the Taliban taking over Afghanistan. Then you are deluding yourself, and a conservative should never do that. That should be the monopoly of the left. It's equivalent to men give birth, okay? To deny that the Taliban, that you are giving Afghanistan over to the Taliban if you leave.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Talk to our millions of listeners across the country about your plans for Afghanistan, the conditions-based withdrawal, and what we have witnessed, the disaster we've witnessed in the last 3 weeks.
Maybe the greatest, most embarrassing disaster we've ever witnessed in our country. The difference was Almost, first of all, it was the opposite. It was the exact opposite. We knocked out ISIS. When I took over, ISIS was all over the Middle East. We knocked out 100% of the ISIS caliphate. I notice now they call it ISIS-K, so you'll explain that. But we knocked out 100% of the ISIS caliphate. We took out al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
I would say that this is now on track, Peter, to be the largest airlift in U.S. history. And that is bringing American citizens out. It is bringing our Afghan partners out. It is bringing allies out. So no, I would not say that is anything but a success.
Okay.
As the kids would say, OMG. Yeah, we have an extensive vetting process. Sure we do. I've been to the border, lady. No, you don't. No, you don't. But again, back to Kamala Harris. There she is trying to escape this mess by hiding out in Singapore. But there are reporters there, too.
To that end, we have seen a successful drawdown of the embassy.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
To the Larry Elder Show. Speaking of Cry Macho, Warner Brothers Pictures presents Cry Macho. From legendary director Clint Eastwood comes a story of being lost and found. Eastwood returns as a one-time rodeo star and washed-up horse breeder who takes a job to bring back a man's young son home from Mexico. The unlikely pair face an unexpectedly challenging journey. The only road home is through redemption. See it in theaters and on HBO Max for 31 days. It's now playing. It's rated PG-13. It may not be suitable for audiences under the age of 13. All right, so I was sitting here and I was thinking of some of the bigger issues, if you will. The blinders are issues like CRT, even though they are effective in tearing apart the country and dividing America. It's extremely effective. But the left uses those issues, the threatening but smaller issues, if you will, to distract from the larger issues. The larger issues being a wide open border that would totally change the demographics of the United States of America. Another large issue would be this spending bill, which we'll get to as well. These are very large issues, and so they want to distract from these particular issues. I think they'd rather us pay attention to CRT and stuff like that. And listen, we can't avoid it. We have to talk about it because there's people out there, children, sadly, that are being brainwashed. They're being brainwashed through CRT, and they end up believing all this other left-wing nonsense that comes right along with it. But the borders will fundamentally transform America right away. So will this spending bill, this this monstrosity, if it's allowed to get through with all this new government spending and new regulations and Green New Deal nonsense. It'll fundamentally transform America. Give us all these new programs that usually, once they're implemented by the federal government, they never go away. Government always says they're gonna repeal this, they're gonna repeal that. Look at Obamacare. We thought that Republicans would get rid of Obamacare. It didn't happen. Trump tried, but I gotta say, even with Trump, he started talking about Trump care. I love Trump, but we don't want Trump care. We don't want Obamacare. What we want is free market health care. And sadly, because Obamacare has been in place so long, I think what we're experiencing with some of these doctors and these hospitals, which I'll get into, is more of them have adapted to socialized medicine, perhaps even more than they realize, where they're willing to abandon the Hippocratic Oath and take orders from the government. And I think we're seeing that more and more and more. And we'll get into that with this Hochul story. So it becomes important that more of us continue to stand up against this. Let me just finish up real quick against this Milley thing, and I want to get to this Hochul thing, and I want to get to these NBA players. I got so much to get to, and I'll get to your calls as well. By the way, if you want to call into the show, the number is 888-971-7243, 888-971-7243. We're coming to you live from the ReliefFactor.com studio. Basically, General McKenzie, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, and then you have Milley, Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley. They all basically admitted, listen, we gave Biden information. We gave them instructions. We warned them that we needed to keep troops on the ground, at least 2,500 troops on the ground. So the Biden administration, as you may recall, began its retreat or its withdrawal of military assets from the provincial capitals across Afghanistan when they began to fall. And then by mid-August, the Taliban had attained control of about 2/3 of Afghanistan. And by the time the U.S. Withdrew all the U.S. Troops from the country on the 31st, Kabul had also fallen to the Taliban. But here's the deal. In mid-August, U.S. intelligence assessments projected that the capital city could fall within 90 days. So they always knew, and Biden always knew, he was informed of this, that there was a potential that it would fall. In his opening statement, Lloyd Austin explained that non-combatant evacuations are, quote, the most challenging of military operations, even under the best of circumstances. He said circumstances in August were anything but ideal, extreme heat, a landlocked. But whose fault is that? Whose fault is that, Secretary of Defense? That's Biden's fault. He's the one that he's the one that moved back the deadline in hopes of getting a photo op for 9/11. And ended up killing 13 of our troops. But Austin says circumstances in August were anything but ideal. Again, extreme heat, a landlocked country, no government, a highly dynamic situation on the ground, and an active, credible, and lethal terrorist threat. Remember that word terrorist, because I want to get back to that when we come back. We'll be back in a few. Do I need to do Pure Talk right now? Or is it too late? Last month, an absolute landslide of you made the switch to Pure Talk. You were chained to overpriced unlimited plans from Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile, then finally decided to make the switch because you know that Pure Talk saves the average family over $800 a year without having to sacrifice coverage. Friends, if you haven't yet made the switch to Pure Talk, this is the easiest decision you'll make today. You can keep your phone, keep your number, or get huge discounts on the latest iPhones and Androids. Get unlimited talk, text, and 6 gigs of data for just $30 a month. Or if you still want unlimited data, you can get that and still save a fortune. Experience why Pure Talk is the highest rated wireless company by Consumer Affairs, why they're the preferred wireless partner of AMAC. From your cell phone, dial pound 250 and say Larry Elder, and you'll save 50% off your first month. That's pound 250, say Larry Elder. Pure Talk is simply smarter wireless. No worries. I just happen to look.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America.
You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not.
We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime. I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
understand that a plane has crashed into...
The people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Biggest and most costly manhunt in U.S. history.
United States killed Osama bin Laden.
There are reports surfacing that Al Qaeda has placed a $50,000 US bounty on the heads of any U.S. Navy SEALs.
Nobody's going to survive that. There's nobody in that.
This is the single largest loss of life in Afghanistan in a single incident.
Most of them are U.S. Navy SEALs.
We discovered bullets in the bodies of the Navy SEAls. The military threw them away.
More likely than not, that supports a shootout on board.
Anybody out there, we have a fallen angel.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
I grew up poor, which is even worse than being poor.
We would have sandwiches with no meat.
My American dream entailed working hard and making $20,000 a year. But I surpassed that goal and became a corporate CEO.
We'll all be able to say, free at last, free at last.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Back to the Larry Elder Show. The number to call in to the ReliefFactor.com studio is 888-971-7243. 888-971-7243. Right now, I'm just giving you kind of a brief overview of what occurred today. I didn't intend to talk about this, but I feel like I need to. It's important. We shouldn't forget what happened in Afghanistan, and people need to be held accountable for the retreat and surrender, or the surrender and retreat that we saw in Kabul at the hands of our leadership in Washington, D.C. They made the withdrawal a political issue rather than operating it from a perspective of military strategy, and we paid the price for it. And now we're the laughing stocks of the world. You know, you guys may recall that Biden went to the UN a couple of weeks ago, made this speech as if we were the best allies that the world has ever known or seen, with him in charge, and it's just completely laughable. Everybody knows that the Biden administration is a complete and utter joke when it comes to foreign policy, and we now know that these, whether it's Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, whether it's the Joint Chiefs of Staff Mark Milley, whether it's the guy at Central Command, General Kenneth McKenzie, all of these people underneath Biden, despite the fact that I do believe they are incompetent and they shouldn't be in their jobs, regardless, at least they made the recommendation that boots should stay on the ground. And Biden himself totally did not take their advice. And as a result of that, you guys may remember another thing that occurred was we had these 10 people that were killed from a drone strike that we initiated, talking about it was ISIS-K. Coming to find out it was a man and his kids coming out to run and hug him and kiss him hello, basically. And we smoked the guy. I mean, just incinerated the guy and his family. And the problem is that's going to happen because we have no feet on the ground. Milley at the time defended the strike as a righteous strike that you may recall, but later described it as a horrible tragedy of war, and they said they were committed to being fully transparent about this incident. Okay, so the withdrawal concluded on August 31st, and you guys may recall that we evacuated 124,000 people, and of that 124,000 people, only 6,000 of them were Americans. And by the way, today at the hearing, I'm not sure if you guys heard this or not, but Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin could not confirm or deny that there may be as many as 4,000 American citizens still left behind in Afghanistan, undoubtedly fearing every second for their lives. This is where we find ourselves with this administration. And then you had Austin saying nothing like this, has ever happened before. No other military in the world could have pulled this off. So Secretary of Defense, this is why this guy needs to go. Again, I love his voice, but that's the only thing that seems to be, good when it comes to this guy and, doing his job. I mean, excellent voice. I mean, the way he speaks and just sounds powerful, but he's completely feckless. That's the sad thing. He's completely woke. He's completely weak when it comes to doing his job. And I don't understand why he would say, and I quote, nothing like this has ever been done before, and no other military in the world could have ever pulled this off. So he's happy that we pulled out 124,000 Afghanistans, by the way, whom we did not vet. Right. And now we have some crimes that are occurring even on bases where we had a female soldier that was attacked by a group of 3 Afghans earlier this week. But I don't know what he's talking about. I guess he's talking about losing. No one else has pulled out like this and lost. No one else has retreated like this. We look completely foolish, and I think we look completely foolish with Austin and both Milley in charge, and they both have to go. They admitted that not having boots on the ground makes any operations, over the horizon operations, any of this stuff, very difficult to accomplish. So this is just crazy. We're just in a bad situation. How can we defend our country? How can we defend the borders? Austin said this is a trip. Austin said he committed to making sure that threats are not allowed to develop that could create significant challenges for us in the homeland. I don't understand how this guy could say this with a straight face, given the fact that our borders are wide open and given the fact of everything that we've seen from the surrender and retreat in Kabul. And then Milley defended private calls that he did, in fact, have with China that were revealed in that new book, Peril, by Bob Woodward and Robert Costa. So he admitted to it. The allegations were made public earlier this month. So Milley made 2 secret phone calls, both to his Chinese counterpart, General Li Zongqing of the People's Liberation Army, during the Trump administration. So all of that was true. He tried to play it off as if, hey, this is something that he does regularly. 11 people were, on the back line. But when he made the call, it really didn't sound like anybody was on the line. It was just him assuring the Chinese general that, hey, we weren't going to do this. He even talked about how he wouldn't answer someone's question. I can't recall who exactly, that Trump wasn't insane. I mean, why would you even entertain that? Milley went on to say, my loyalty to this nation, its people, and the Constitution hasn't changed and will never change as long as I have a breath to give. My loyalty is absolute, and I will not turn my back on the fallen. With respect to the Chinese cause, I routinely communicated with my counterpart, General Li, with the knowledge and coordination of civilian oversight. Was that civilian oversight Trump? Because Trump didn't know about this. He didn't even believe it initially, as a matter of fact. So he definitely didn't report to the to Trump. Milley said he informed Secretary of State Pompeo, White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, and Acting Secretary Miller about the January call. But this is a little misleading because he said these calls he had already planned before he made the calls. So I just think he said something. How long do I have, Sean? Okay. So I think he just basically said something different than he was expected to have been said on the call. We only have a minute left before the break, and I'll get to your calls after we come back from the break. When we come back, I want to play you some audio, some NBA players speaking up against the vaccines. And also Governor Hochul again says vaccines are from God, and she sends out her apostles to push the jabs. But I'm going to give you some instances where the Democrat Party have been anti-God. So we'll share those with you on the other side. This is Carl Jackson filling in for Larry Elder. We're coming to you live from the ReliefFactor.com studio, 888-971-7243. We'll be back in a few.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
If you can stop an earthquake, doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
There's an old brown battered notebook in my office at work. You have to find it, take it, and keep it hidden at all costs.
If we are to build the superhuman, we must first eliminate those who are flawed.
People are created equally. All of downtown, the high-rises were built on rollers to withstand horizontal shakes. A vertical quake this size could collapse half of downtown.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
The public would be outraged if they knew the truth.
Why do you think our politicians are not on the sidewalk right now talking to you?
Don't have no respect.
The old wall randomly turns into a guardrail, followed by miles of open border.
Human trafficking problem.
That journey is extremely dangerous.
The 7-year-old girl died in the desert.
From the country of India.
A great pillar of the community was killed by a man who had been deported at least twice.
This little urn contains the ashes of my son. His dreams cut short forever.
We're so worried about other countries' problems, and we don't even focus on our own.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
The only time you can come to Christ when the Spirit of God comes.
Have you ever thought of going to seminary?
Billy Graham.
Gloria a Dios, hermanos. ¿Quién está listo para ser transformado por el poder de su palabra?
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
To the Larry Elder Show. I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and take a few of your calls. Guys, I'm flying blind when it comes to the clock, so just let me know where I'm at. Let's go to Melanie in Rockland, California. Melanie, welcome to the Larry Elder Show. You got the mic.
Thank you so much, Carl. I appreciate it. So I got a taste today of what it must have felt like for Larry Elder's dad being discriminated against when he went in the unemployment office. And the lady said, you went in the wrong door. And so then he went in the colored door back to the exact same lady. I went into the California Franchise Tax Board today, and I went up to the bulletproof glass window, and I did not have a mask on. And I was refused service because I didn't have a mask on. And they said, I just wanted a receipt for my taxes. And they said, well, you can put the taxes over there in the drop box. I said, oh, where does that go? They say, oh, we take care of it. That's our drop box. It's not going to get mailed out. I said, but I want a receipt. They said, you can't have a receipt because you don't have a mask on.
What?
So, yeah. And I said, but I claim religious exemption. They say that doesn't apply here. I said, but it's under constitutional protection. They said, well, we're under a Sacramento mandate. I said, but it breaks U.S. law. They said, well, this building's under the Sacramento mandate. And so it was like talking in circles.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I mean, they are going to crack down. Melanie, I'm so sorry you had to experience that. Thank you for the call. unfortunately, this is going to get worse. And I believe that Democrats want to, just California-ize, if I could say that, the rest of the United States of America. That's exactly what they're attempting to do. Let's go to Steve in Fresno, California. Steve, welcome to the Larry Elder Show. You've got the mic.
Thank you. I just wanted to say I heard you talking about how the blue and the red are fighting each other. And we need to get together instead of fighting each other and fight the socialists in Washington.
Yeah. Yeah, Steve, I absolutely agree with you. Your call says the socialists are coming in the back door. They're actually, just like you said, they're actually already in the door. They're in Washington. We all need to get together to fight them. Unfortunately, so many Democrats through academia have been brainwashed to believe in socialism without even understanding what it is. So again, we'll talk about that a little bit in the third hour and try to put it into perspective. But we have to fight back against this thing, and we have to realize that the Democrat Party that exists in Washington, D.C. isn't your grandpappy's party. We all need to fight back. This is Carl Jackson in for Larry Elder. We'll be back on the other side.
Streaming on Salem Now.
We understand that a plane has crashed into...
The people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Biggest and most costly manhunt in U.S. history.
United States killed Osama bin Laden.
There are reports surfacing that Al-Qaeda has placed a $50,000 US bounty on the heads of any U.S. Navy SEALs.
Nobody's going to survive that. There's nobody in that.
This is the single largest loss of life in Afghanistan in a single incident.
Most of them are U.S. Navy SEALs.
We discovered bullets in the bodies of the Navy SEALs. The military threw them away.
More likely than not, that supports a shootout on board.
Anybody out there, we have a fallen angel.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
This is a story of how 1 million children were placed with local foster families through an unlikely alliance between the Chinese government and a British footballer. Parents from all walks of life share their stories of overcoming the one-child policy by taking in orphans. With unprecedented access across the country, this is a unique insight into the lives of the 90s orphans now driving the 21st century's fastest growing economy.
This story needs to be told across the world. At a time where there's so much negativity and cynicism, here's proof that a single leap of faith can change the world.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
I grew up poor, which is even worse than being poor.
We would have sandwiches with no meat.
My American dream entailed working hard and making $20,000 a year. But I surpassed that goal and became a corporate CEO.
We'll all be able to say, free at last, free at last.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
You can stop an earthquake. Doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
I would like my fellow conservatives, the majority of whom wanted to leave Afghanistan, to be as intellectually honest as I demand the left is, you must say, I am for the Taliban taking over Afghanistan. If you do not say that, you are a conservative who is not being honest. You cannot say, I am for leaving Afghanistan, but I am against the Taliban taking over Afghanistan. Then you are deluding yourself, and a conservative should never do that. That should be the monopoly of the left. It's equivalent to men give birth, okay? To deny that the Taliban, that you are giving Afghanistan over to the Taliban if you leave.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Talk to our millions of listeners across the country about your plans for Afghanistan, the conditions-based withdrawal, and what we have witnessed, the disaster we've witnessed in the last 3 weeks.
Maybe the greatest, most embarrassing disaster we've ever witnessed in our country. The difference was almost, first of all, it was the opposite. It was the exact opposite. We knocked out ISIS. When I took over, ISIS was all over the Middle East. We knocked out 100% of the ISIS caliphate. I notice now they call it ISIS-K, so you'll explain that. But we knocked out 100% of the ISIS caliphate. We took out al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
I would say that this is now on track, Peter, to be the largest airlift in U.S. history. And that is bringing American citizens out. It is bringing our Afghan partners out. It is bringing allies out. So no, I would not say that is anything but a success.
Okay. As the kids would say, OMG. Yeah, we have an extensive vetting process. Sure we do. I've been to the border, lady. No, you don't. No, you don't. But again, back to Kamala Harris. There she is trying to escape this mess by hiding out in Singapore. But there are reporters there, too.
To that end, we have seen a successful drawdown of the embassy.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Fiance? No, I can't be your fiance.
You're gonna go. You're gonna be my fiance, and you're gonna be the most amazing, fascinating, most successful man ever. We're only gonna be there for a few hours, eat dinner, and I promise we'll have the best breakup of all time.
My baby, my princess. Oh, yeah.
Beat a little bit.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
All right, welcome back to the Larry Elder Show. Again, the number to call into the ReliefFactor.com studio is 888-971-7243. Excuse me, 888-971-7243. Just a recap of the first hour, we just just gave you a brief overview of the hearings that occurred today on Capitol Hill with General Milley, our Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Milley, and then Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, and also the General McKenzie, excuse me, I forget his first name, but General McKenzie. So just a brief overview of that. Listen, and also just the polls that Biden is tanking. And also to recap, listen, there's big issues. We have to focus on everything the left is attempting to do. Kenneth, thank you. General Kenneth. Kenneth McKenzie, General Kenneth McKenzie, I believe. All right, so, okay. So General Kenneth, all right, and so but what the left is trying to do is they'll keep blinders on their own voters, on their own people. They'll use CRT, they'll use global warming, and these are very, very dangerous, and all of these can change the country over time. And I'd argue CRT has been an extreme existential threat, and it has been changing the country over time, and it's been priming Americans to hate other fellow Americans just based upon skin color. And they've been using CRT, and they've been using race as a way to distract from some of the bigger issues that the left is trying to do, including this monstrosity bill, this $3.5 trillion bill, which will actually be $6.9 trillion in the long run, which I shared with you yesterday, and we'll try to go back through some of that today. And that's meant to totally transform the way that we operate. America will not be America if this monstrosity is passed, just because of all of the programs that exist within that bill. Green energy, everything they're trying to do to reshape America is in that bill. And I don't believe there's any turning back if that's passed. So Republicans have to stay strong. You couple that with the fact that, listen, there's going to be a showdown. There is a showdown brewing as far as the government shutdown. Democrats control it all. So I would encourage Republicans to just step back and watch and let it happen. It looks like Mitch McConnell is doing just that because they run the White House. They run the Senate. They run the House. But the left is simply trying to take us down. They're simply trying to destroy America as it exists. We still got plenty to get to. I want to talk to you about these Mexican drug cartels that are trying to intentionally provoke clashes between illegal migrants and the Border Patrol, just because they know that Biden is so weak and the left is so weak and Democrats are so gullible that they'll pull more agents off the line and make our borders even more susceptible to who God knows who may be coming through our borders. And that's exactly what these Mexican cartels want. And you have the DEA warning of an alarming increase in fentanyl-laced fake pills. Where do you think those pills are coming from? Where do you think that fentanyl is coming from? Now with open borders, this is just totally crazy. But I do want to go into this Hochul story. I've been saying I was going to get into it, and I do want to talk about these NBA players. So I got a couple of sound clips that I want you guys to hear because it's important that there's obviously we're going to disagree with Democrats and or leftists on a plethora of issues. But I think one thing that we need to stand together on and be willing to give props to people on the left. And again, I'm not even sure of where these players stand, so I shouldn't say that. But just speaking generally, I think vaccine mandates are something that we all should stand against. And I'll get into why a little more when we speak about Hochul. But let's go ahead and play audio clip number 7. Here's Bradley Beal and his take on the vaccine mandates.
Every player, every person in this world is going to make their own decision for themselves. I would like an explanation to, people with vaccines. Why are they still getting COVID? If that's something that we are supposed to highly be protected from. Like, that's funny that, it reduces your chances of going to the hospital.
All right, so
that
that's
doesn't eliminate anybody from getting COVID, right? So everybody in here vaxxed? I would assume, right? So you all can still get COVID, right?
So that's Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal is a very, very intelligent player, plays for the Washington Wizards. A very smart guy. And he has been vaxxed, but he's just asking the question, hey, listen, we can still catch this thing. So, I mean, just a smart player. Here's another one. Jonathan Isaac. He plays right here in Orlando. I want to give props to this guy. This guy is a Christian, Jonathan Isaac. And not just that, Jonathan Isaac, before you hear this audio clip of him, and talk about his hesitancy as far as the vaccine is concerned, I want you to know that this guy stood up when other Orlando Magic players kneeled, and whatever team was in town at the time kneeled for the national anthem. If I recall correctly, this was the only guy that refused to kneel. He took the criticism right here locally. He just expressed that he didn't feel the same way. He's a Christian, so on, etc. He's thankful for his opportunities. Yeah, I can't remember everything he said, but I tell you, this is a stand-up guy, this NBA player, Jonathan Isaac. Now, here's what he has to say about his own vaccine hesitancy. Audio clip 8.
I've had COVID in the past, and so our understanding of antibodies, of natural immunity has changed a great deal from the onset of the pandemic, and is still evolving. I understand that the vaccine would help if you catch COVID, and you'll be able to have less symptoms from contracting it. But with me having COVID in the past and having antibodies with my current age group and physical fitness level, it's not necessarily a fear of mine. Taking the vaccine, like I said, it would decrease my chances of having a severe reaction, but it does open me up to the, albeit rare chance, but the possibility of having an adverse reaction to the vaccine itself. I don't believe that being unvaccinated means infected, or being vaccinated means uninfected. You can still catch COVID with or without having the vaccine. I would say, honestly, the craziness of it all, in terms of not being able to say that it should be everybody's fair choice without being demeaned or talked crazy to, doesn't make one comfortable to do what said person is telling them to do.
All right, so that is Jonathan Isaac, and you can tell this guy is informed. All right, he talked about antibodies. The way that he broke it down, obviously this guy has been reading and knows his stuff. But it's not just them. It's people like Kyrie Irving. So more than 90% of the NBA players have been vaccinated against COVID-19. This, according to the league, all the referees, the key team personnel, all without exemptions, will be too, and that's by the season start in 3 weeks. But a few of the players, like you just heard, Jonathan Isaac, Bradley Beal, including, and the Nets star Kyrie Irving, have expressed skepticism about the vaccines. And then, because the Nets are projected to be a top championship contender, and the team is one of just 3 whose players must be vaccinated to play in their home arena. So just 1 of 3 teams where all of their players must be vaccinated. Irving's vaccination status, they say, could be a factor as to whether or not the NBA or that team makes it to the playoffs. He's a great player. He said, in regards to the vaccines, he says, I would like to keep all that private. Irving told reporters this on Monday in response to the question about whether he expected to play home games this season. He just said, please, just respect my privacy. All the questions leading into what's happening, just please, everything will be released at a due date once we get this cleared up. When we get back from the break, I'll read a couple of more quotes from some more NBA players, and then I'll go to Governor Hochul and why the left only uses God when they believe it's convenient in order to attack the right. We'll be back.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
I would like my fellow conservatives, the majority of whom wanted to leave Afghanistan, to be as intellectually honest as I demand the left is. You must say, I am for the Taliban taking over Afghanistan. If you do not say that, you are a conservative who is not being honest. You cannot say, I am for leaving Afghanistan, but I am against the Taliban taking over Afghanistan. Then you are deluding yourself, and a conservative should never do that. That should be the monopoly of the left. It's equivalent to men give birth, okay? To deny that the Taliban, that you are giving Afghanistan over to the Taliban if you leave.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Talk to our millions of listeners across the country about your plans for Afghanistan, the conditions-based withdrawal, and what we have witnessed, the disaster we've witnessed in the last 3 weeks.
Maybe the greatest, most embarrassing disaster we've ever witnessed in our country. The difference was first of all, it was the opposite. It was the exact opposite. We knocked out ISIS. When I took over, ISIS was all over the Middle East. We knocked out 100% of the ISIS caliphate. I notice now they call it ISIS-K, so you'll explain that. But we knocked out 100% of the ISIS caliphate. We took out al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
I would say that this is now on track, Peter, to be the largest airlift in U.S. history. And that is bringing American citizens out. It is bringing our Afghan partners out. It is bringing allies out. So no, I would not say that is anything but a success.
Okay. As the kids would say, OMG. Yeah, we have an extensive vetting process. Sure we do. I've been to the border, lady. No, you don't. No, you don't. But again, back to Kamala Harris. There she is trying to escape this mess by hiding out in Singapore. But there are reporters there, too.
To that end, we have seen a successful drawdown of the embassy.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America.
You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Welcome back to the Larry Elder Show. The number to call in to the ReliefFactor.com studio, 888-971-7243, 888-971-7243. So Governor Hochul says vaccines are from God and sends out her own apostles to push jabs. All right, this is very interesting. Before we get to that story, though, we have to take a refresher course, if you will, just quickly here in how all of this transpired and why I believe and how this speech came to be about Hochul pretending as if the vaccines are somehow divine. And again, just to reiterate, I've got this theory when it comes to radical left-wing females in office that they'll always try and act tougher or outdo their male counterparts. I believe that's what left-wing radical women like to do. They want to feel powerful. They want to act like men. They want to be stronger than men. And I feel like they think they need to prove themselves when it comes to in the political atmosphere. And I believe that's exactly what this Governor Hochul is doing. So remember, New York's vaccine mandates for healthcare workers takes effect. Did it already take effect? Was it? I believe it was yesterday. Or if it wasn't yesterday, it's this upcoming Monday. And this inevitably is going to lead to shortage in healthcare workers. And Hochul knows that. But she says, listen, we're still in this battle against COVID to protect our loved ones, and we need to fight with every tool at our disposal. She said what she'd do, her plan is to first declare this state of emergency. That would allow healthcare professionals that are licensed outside of New York, as well as recent graduates and retirees, to practice there. Other options she expounded on included deploying medically trained National Guard members, partnering with the federal government to send disaster medical assistance teams to local health and medical systems, and exploring ways to expedite visa requests for medical professionals. So instead of using healthcare workers that are already there, they may have already had, as far as we don't know, but I'm suspecting, since many of them are exposed to the Wuhan virus in the hospitals, they may have natural immunity, and that isn't even brought up by her. Not to mention the fact that she wants to partner with the federal government. Guys, you see what's going on here? We're inching closer and closer and closer to socialized medicine. This is what Obamacare initially did. The fact that Republicans won't fight back against this tells me that some Republicans must be deeply invested in some of these corporations, whether it's pharmaceuticals. They're making money too somehow, because this makes absolutely no sense. We're getting screwed by these people, and it's causing our doctors, our nurses in the healthcare industry to just totally, just negate their Hippocratic oath. They're starting to look at patients as far as, we're just becoming numbers, and not to all of them. Remember, last night I told you about these doctors that signed a particular, they signed a pledge. I forget what it is now. It was basically like, listen, we're under a humanitarian crisis. We need to be speaking out against therapeutics. As I'm using my firmly fingerprinted fingertips to go through my stack of brilliance, and I just can't find it right now. But anyway, nonetheless, there are doctors that are standing up, but many of those doctors are being silenced. But nonetheless, you see the state governments getting in bed with the federal government. This is never going to go well. Just consider the DMV, consider Medicare, consider Medicaid. None of these programs work great. You don't get the greatest service with them unless you have a personal relationship with a good doctor that accepts Medicare, Medicaid. But okay, so the New York vaccine mandate was as of yesterday. Thank you, Sean. All right, thank you. So hundreds of healthcare workers have been suspended. You think these people care about life? This is so trivial. Do you understand how many people may die as a result of this nonsense? But here, this lady, she wants to make a point. So now all healthcare workers are already they're going to be fired. They're suspended now. And ultimately, I suspect that it may lead to them being fired if they don't comply. And these people want absolute full compliance. All of the healthcare workers at New York's hospital and nursing homes are required to have at least one dose, and this was by yesterday, of the COVID-19 vaccine by yesterday. That was according to state regulations. And then staff at other institutions, including home care, the hospice, adult care facilities, must be vaccinated by October 7th. So that is closing in. Now, here's what I want you to understand. You tell me, I'm asking you this question. Does herd immunity exist or not? Natural immunity, I'm sure there's a lot of natural immunity going on. I believe they've achieved herd immunity within their hospital system. Listen to this. These are the most recent numbers, at least as of last week anyway. 84% of all hospital employees were fully vaccinated. 81% of the staff at all adult care facilities were fully vaccinated. 77% of nursing home facilities and staff were fully vaccinated as of last Thursday's. But this isn't enough for these lefties because they want full compliance, 100% compliance, even if it means patients are going to die. These people don't care about life. If they cared about life, they wouldn't be advocates for abortion. They wouldn't be trying, especially those in the media, they wouldn't be trying to hide the fact that the Biden administration, the Biden-Harris administration abandoned Americans in Kabul. It's amazing. Now, Hochul is being sued. And so I suspect this is where Hochul's admonition comes from, because she's being sued because some people are challenging the lack of religious exemptions. So this is where she's being challenged. I think this is why she ended up giving this speech. So as a result of her restrictions, now hospitals will have limited procedures. Elective surgeries will have to be cut back or put on the back burner. There will be limited admissions into the hospitals themselves, unless they can retain some of these volunteers. So this is what this lady wants to offer. You can't tell me that some of these people are going to experience subpar help as a result of this. And in the meanwhile, there's no telling how many people will die just because they don't have the arms and feet in the hospital to help these people out. The Northwell Health Hospital, or the state's largest healthcare provider, has been holding meetings with staffers in an effort to persuade thousands of the holdouts. This, according to the Associated Press, and some 90% of its 74,000 active personnel had been vaccinated as of Thursday, though the hospital said it's not expecting full compliance and has more than 3,000 retirees, students, and volunteers on standby. So you see what's happening to these healthcare officials? They are becoming more callous as the politicians become more callous. Hey, if these workers quit, screw them. Who cares if they have a 20, 30 year, history with us? Who cares about their family members if they're going to feed them, if they're going to be able to feed them? These people don't believe in science anymore. They don't believe in science. They believe in socialism. That's the Democrat politicians and these doctors. We'll be back in a few.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Understand that a plane has crashed into...
The people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Biggest and most costly manhunt in U.S. history.
United States killed Osama bin Laden.
There are reports surfacing that Al Qaeda has placed a $50,000 US bounty on the heads of any U.S. Navy SEALs.
Nobody's going to survive that. There's nobody in that.
This is the single largest loss of life in Afghanistan in a single incident.
Most of them are U.S. Navy SEALs.
We discovered bullets in the bodies of the Navy SEAls. The military threw them away.
More likely than not, that supports a shootout on board.
Anybody out there, we have a fallen angel.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
This is a story of how 1 million children were placed with local foster families through an unlikely alliance between the Chinese government and a British footballer. Parents from all walks of life share their stories of overcoming the one-child policy by taking in orphans. With unprecedented access across the country, this is a unique insight into the lives of the 90s orphans now driving the 21st century's fastest growing economy.
This story needs to be told across the world. At a time where there's so much negativity and cynicism, here's proof that a single leap of faith can change the world.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
talk to our millions of listeners across the country about your plans for Afghanistan, the conditions-based withdrawal, and what we have witnessed, the disaster we've witnessed in the last 3 weeks?
Maybe the greatest, most embarrassing disaster we've ever witnessed in our country. The difference was almost, first of all, it was the opposite. It was the exact opposite. We knocked out ISIS. When I took over, ISIS was all over the Middle East. We knocked out 100% of the ISIS caliphate. I notice now they call it ISIS-K, so you'll explain that. But we knocked out 100% of the ISIS caliphate. We took out al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS. Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
You can stop an earthquake. Doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not.
We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime. I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem.
Compliance. And again, NBA players are standing up, but you have people like this Governor Hochul of New York. Maybe some New Yorkers may be missing Andrew Cuomo. I kind of seriously doubt that, but I think they'll be wanting to get rid of this lady by next year. Unfortunately, it's New York, so I don't believe she'll be going anywhere. It seems as if New Yorkers like to be dominated by their political leaders. It's the weirdest and strangest thing to me. It's almost as if these people are anti-freedom in some of these states. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But just carrying on with this issue with Governor Kathy Hochul, again, this lady is willing to put people's lives at risk. And what's even more disturbing, or just as disturbing to me, at how many doctors and hospitals and their administrations are willing to comply with this nonsense, because it doesn't make sense at all. These people in the hospital that work in the healthcare system, if they really know about science and the human body, I don't believe they should be listening to politicians when the politicians are obviously doing something that is unscientific. The fact that we're not talking about natural immunity, the fact that we're not talking about therapeutics, it just tells you that the medical profession, many in the medical profession, are just untrustworthy. It's sad. If I meet a medical professional that is down with socialized medicine, I do not want them to be my doctor, because I would not count on them to stand up for me in the long run. But elective inpatient surgeries are going to be reduced significantly and even suspended in some of these hospitals in New York. This is from the Erie County Medical Center Corporation in Buffalo, and they're anticipating that roughly 10% of its workforce, or 400 workers, may not get vaccinated. And they probably did not, this according to the AP. And again, this is older news in order to, or refresher news, if you will, in order to get to this issue with Hochul pretending as if this vaccine is divine from God. Also, again, there's going to be elective inpatient surgeries, according to this one hospital that I just mentioned, Erie County Medical Center. suspending elective inpatient surgeries. They're going to reduce hours at outpatient clinics. They're going to temporarily stop accepting ICU transfers. All of this because this lady, this governor, wants to show off her political power. She wants to show how tough she is. She wants to show as well that she really cares. But again, it's absolutely amazing to me when the left always pretends like when they're trying to pretend like they care, they'll try to invoke God. So here's the latest with Governor Hochul. She says that and by the way, if you want to call into the ReliefFactor.com studio, you can do so at 888-971-7243, 888-971-7243. So Governor Hochul says, or she preached at from a pulpit in Brooklyn on Sunday that citizens should be thankful to God for the COVID-19 vaccines, which she claimed were divinely inspired. Here's how you know she's a liar. I wonder if she thanked Trump for Operation Warp Speed. I wonder if that was included in her speech. I wonder if she was thankful that God used President Donald Trump in order to invoke Operation Warp Speed to get the vaccines out to people. For some reason, I doubt that she ever mentioned that. Hochul urged her listeners to be her, quote, apostles, unquote, by convincing their friends to get vaccinated, an act, she said, demonstrates the love Jesus commanded his fellow followers to exhibit. And the connection here is obviously people are suing her as a result of this mandate. People that are saying, listen, you got to offer some religious exemptions for this. Even the NBA is offering some medical and religious exemptions. And NBA players, again, we played you some audio earlier. Some NBA players are standing up. Places like Golden State Warriors, the Knicks, and the New Jersey Nets. Every one of their team members have to be fully vaccinated in order to play in their arenas. It's absolutely crazy. So there's a showdown brewing there. But she talks about demonstrating the love of Jesus with these vaccines. She says, we are not through this pandemic. And Hochul said this was during her homily at the Christian Cultural Center. She said, I wish we were, but I prayed a lot to God during this time. And you know what? God did answer our prayers. He made the smartest men and women, the scientists, the doctors, the researchers. He made them come up with a vaccine. That is from God to us, and we must say, thank you, God. Thank you. Again, no mention of Trump or Operation Warp Speed. This is Carl Jackson in for Larry Elder. We'll be back with more on the other side.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America.
You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not.
We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime. I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
We we understand that a plane has crashed into...
The people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Biggest and most costly manhunt in U.S. history.
United States killed Osama bin Laden.
There are reports surfacing that Al-Qaeda has placed a $50,000 bounty on the heads of any U.S. Navy SEALs.
Nobody's going to survive that. There's nobody in that.
This is the single largest loss of life in Afghanistan in a single incident.
Most of them are U.S. Navy SEALs.
We discovered bullets in the bodies of the Navy SEALs. The military threw them away.
More likely than not, that supports a shootout on board.
Anybody out there, we have a fallen angel.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
This is a story of how 1 million children were placed with local foster families through an unlikely alliance between the Chinese government and a British footballer. Parents from all walks of life share their stories of overcoming the one-child policy by taking in orphans. With unprecedented access across the country, this is a unique insight into the lives of the 90s orphans now driving the 21st century's fastest growing economy. This story needs to be told across the world. At a time where there's so much negativity and cynicism, here's proof that a single leap of faith can change the world.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Special guest host Carl Jackson filling in for the great Eldersky. You can find me on Facebook, Carl Jackson Radio. Like and share the page. And some of you may have to unlike and relike the page because Facebook is trying their best to do a number on me. The same is true with Twitter. You can find me on Twitter at Carl Jackson Show. And you can read some of my past articles at carljacksonshow.com. I tell you what, before I go in any further, let's take a call here. Let's go to Josh in Wisconsin. Josh, welcome to the Larry Elder Show. You've got the mic.
Hi, thank you very much for taking my call, Carl. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
All right, thank you very much. So I just want to let you know I'm 16, and I'm in high school, and apparently there's this proposal called the Equal Rights Amendment.
Okay.
It's a proposed amendment. This is the definition. It's a proposed amendment to the United States Constitution designed to guarantee equal legal rights for all American citizens regardless of sex. It seeks to end the legal distinctions between men and women in matters of divorce, property, employment, and other matters. And apparently Nevada, Illinois, and apparently now Virginia are seeking to ratify it. But I thought we already had this amendment, and it's called the 14th Amendment.
You know what? Listen, Josh, you're a smart kid. I wasn't sure where this call was going to go initially when I saw it on the call screen. So, yeah, I was going to go to – I wasn't sure if I was going to have to go 13th, 14th Amendment on you or what. I'm going to have to read further in. I wasn't aware of this, to be frank with you. So I'm going to have to read about that, and I will do that this evening. But I will say, yeah, this is the left. What the left wants to constantly do is find fake fights so they can feel like new heroes. These fights have already been fought. These fights have already been won. There is equal opportunity with men and women. The left will always claim, well, women work, women don't get the same pay for the same work. And all that is a bunch of hobnosh, because when you look at the stats and all this kind of stuff, and when you look at the facts, it's usually maybe men will work overtime where women will want, more time off, so on, etc. Men will work certain jobs that women won't work, and there's all these factors that plays into that. But I will look into that a little more deeply, Josh, and I'm sure that I'll talk about it. So I appreciate you bringing it to my attention. But you're right, and I'm glad you're so smart to be 16, because yes, we're already there. There is equal opportunity. Now what the left is fighting for is extra opportunity for the people they like. All right. Thank you so much. All right, Josh, I appreciate the call. Thanks for being out there. Again, if you'd like to call into the Larry Elder Show, you can do so at 888-971-7243, 888-971-7243. So Governor Hochul all of a sudden believes that the vaccines are divine, but somehow she forgot to give Trump credit for them. She also goes on she showed off her necklace that indicated her vaccination status. I'm sure that looked all pretty nice, and, all that kind of good stuff made her feel good about herself. And then she said, she alleged that those who refuse the COVID-19 vaccine aren't listening to God and what God wants. So she said, I need you to be my apostles. I need you to go out and talk about it and say, we owe this to each other. We love each other. Jesus taught us to love one another. And how do you show that love? But to care about each other enough to say, oh man, she really cared about the people that she's going to fire in the healthcare industry. Please get the vaccine, because I love you and I want you to live. I want our kids to be safe when they're in schools. I want to be safe when you go to a doctor's office or to a hospital and are treated by somebody. You don't want to get the virus from them. You're already sick, or you wouldn't be there. Speaking of kids, I want you to, let me take a quick detour, because I want you to hear this audio from Project Veritas. This from Project Veritas. This is employees at Johnson & Johnson. Here's what they have to say about vaccinating kids. Cut number 9, por favor.
So if it were your kid, would you get them vaccinated?
I don't think they need it.
So what would you say? Homeschool or get the vaccine?
Honestly, I don't think a kid needs to get it. Vaccine, you're a kid,
All right, so these are Johnson & Johnson employees saying a kid shouldn't get a effing vaccine. There are unknown repercussions. They're kids. This from the makers of the J&J vaccine. But yet the left is continuing with this nonsense and pretending as if it's holy all of a sudden. This is what Hochul continued to say. And here's my promise to you, my friends. I will use the inspiration of God in my life and fight for you every single day as your governor and beyond. She goes on to say, and because, all right, she said she'll fight, on God's behalf, basically, yet she's been extremely dismissive regarding those that are seeking the religious exemption. And she said, I'm not aware of a sanctioned religious exemption from any organized religion. In fact, she said they are encouraging the opposite. Everybody from the Pope on down is encouraging people to get vaccinated. Well, encouraging, Governor Hochul, isn't coercing. They're not forcing them. They are encouraging them. So, and that doesn't mean that you have the authority to force people to do that. Hochul said in her administration will defend the right of New York to ensure that anyone in a healthcare facility can meet a patient, and that patient does not have to worry when they go in there for healthcare that they're going to contract the virus from one of the people that are supposed to protect their health. I would encourage you to keep an eye on the COVID numbers in New York this winter, because I suspect it's going to be crazy. Listen, we're getting ready to head to a break, but when we get back from the break, are hospitals actually being overrun by COVID-19 in the first place? I want to talk to you about that, because they attacked our governor right here in Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis, and I'm here to tell you all of this stuff is a bunch of BS. This is Carl Jackson in for Larry Elder. We'll be back in a few.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Talk to our millions of listeners across the country about your plans for Afghanistan, the conditions-based withdrawal, and what we have witnessed, the disaster we've witnessed in the last 3 weeks.
Maybe the greatest, most embarrassing disaster we've ever witnessed in our country. The difference was almost, first of all, it was the opposite. It was the exact opposite. We knocked out ISIS. When I took over, ISIS was all over the Middle East. We knocked out 100% of the ISIS caliphate. I notice now they call it ISIS-K, so you'll explain that. But we knocked out 100% of the ISIS caliphate. We took out al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
I would say that this is now on track, Peter, to be the largest airlift in U.S. history. And that is bringing American citizens out. It is bringing our Afghan partners out. It is bringing allies out. So no, I would not say that is anything but a success.
Okay. As the kids would say, OMG. Yeah, we have an extensive vetting process. Sure we do. I've been to the border, lady. No, you don't. No, you don't. But again, back to Kamala Harris. There she is trying to escape this mess by hiding out in Singapore. But there are reporters there, too.
To that end, we have seen a successful drawdown of the embassy.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
I think this family can pick you up every time you fall.
Every time I take one step forward.
When Wright came in this morning, he wants to fight you.
No one expected this out of him.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
If you can stop an earthquake, doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Back to the Larry Elder Show. The number to call in, 888-971-7243, 888-971-7243. Listen, we have a short period of time before the top of the hour, so instead of diving in any further to this, because I'm going to break down, I'm going to give you 6 instances where the left clearly did not care about God, and I'll share that with you on the other side, as well as I want to get into this story with the Mexican drug cartels or trying to provoke more clashes with the migrants. The DEA is warning of alarming increases in fentanyl. So I'm going to get into both of those stories. I hope to talk about socialism versus capitalism. Hopefully I will get into that. We'll have some audio clips to share with you. And if I'm not able to complete that, we'll go into that tomorrow. So let's take a couple of calls here. Let's go to Tom in Indiana. Tom, welcome to the Larry Elder Show. You've got the mic.
Carl, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. I'll be quick. Listen, you're the first person. I only heard you one time last week. Never heard of you before. Now you've got me hooked. But I have never heard anyone say before about the Women in Power segment that you had. And you're going to catch a lot of flack for that, brother, but you know what? I support that 100%. You are absolutely right about what you're saying. And you know what it comes down to is what Larry would say. Where are the men in our country that are going to step up and take the reins No pun intended on the latest Del Rio thing.
Right.
Okay. No, that was okay. Take the reins and become cowboy up and become real men. You know, and the other thing I wanted to say to you was, my head's about to explode. But your last caller was 16 years old. I'm 62, and you know what? I used to be a liberal. Seriously, I used to bend to the left, and I'm 180 degrees from that now, and I am my head is about to explode. I can't take it anymore. Afghanistan, the economy, we were economically independent with oil, everything that you discuss, and then my question to you is, what are we prepared to do? There's a great line that Sean Connery says in The Untouchables when he says, "What are you prepared to do?"
All right.
And I think that's what it's going to come down to, man. Hey, listen, I love your show. I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to look you up, and please fight. Keep.
We'll continue to fight, Tom. I appreciate you being out there. Thank you for the call. We'll answer Tom's question a little more in depthly on the other side of the break. My suspicion is that men started to lose their manliness not only because of the feminazi movement, as Rush Limbaugh called it, but I think it has to do with Speedos. When did men start wearing Speedos and those tight biker shorts? Inevitably, manhood was going down when that started to become a fad. We'll be back on the other side. This is Carl Jackson in for Larry Elder.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America. You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not. We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime. I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
We understand that a plane has crashed into...
The people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Biggest and most costly manhunt in U.S. history.
United States killed Osama bin Laden.
There are reports surfacing that Al-Qaeda has placed a $50,000 bounty on the heads of any U.S. Navy SEALs.
Nobody's going to survive that. There's nobody in that.
This is the single largest loss of life in Afghanistan in a single incident.
Most of them are U.S. Navy SEALs.
We discovered bullets in the bodies of the Navy SEALs. The military threw them away.
More likely than not, that supports a shootout on board.
Anybody out there, we have a fallen angel.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
How is it possible that Joe Biden let this happen? Was this intentional? Did he want our enemies to have it? It's hard to believe that incompetence could possibly let this happen. Jake Sullivan, the highly unimpressive person who's never done anything useful in his life, says we don't have a complete picture, obviously, of where every article of defense materials has gone, but certainly a fair amount of it has fallen into the hands of the Taliban. And obviously we don't have a sense that we're going to be ready to hand it over to us at the airport. The Taliban now has the 26th largest air force in the world with 0 pilots. 600,000 weapons, 75,000 vehicles, 200 total aircraft, and $85 billion in total weapons. 110 helicopters, 60 transportation cargo airplanes, 20 light attack airplanes, and 18 intelligence, reconnaissance, and surveillance airplanes. The Taliban now has more Black Hawk helicopters than Australia. And this is all on our government. This is all on Joe Biden, who now wants praise, who says, this was a perfect withdrawal. Are you kidding me? Cut 59, Jen Psaki says that the Afghanistan effort is a success. It's on track to be the largest airlift in U.S. history.
Say that this is now on track, Peter, to be the largest airlift in U.S. history. And that is bringing American citizens out. It is bringing our Afghan partners out. It is bringing allies out. So no, I would not say that is anything but a success.
Anything but a success.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Any teacher who's taping masks to 9-year-olds' heads should be fired immediately. I mean, that's not, I'm not going out on a limb here to say that. Do you disagree with that? Now, the lunatics who are so mask and vaccine crazed, who are freaking out about 100,000 people in a college football stadium, I'll bet they think that's okay. Well, if the 9-year-old doesn't have his mask on, you got to tape it to his head. Now tape the mask around it so it stays over his mouth and his nose. Not only should the teacher lose her job, she should be arrested. That's assault.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not. We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime. I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
Fiance? No, I can't be your fiance.
You're gonna go. You're gonna be my fiance, and you're gonna be the most amazing, fascinating, most successful man ever. We're only gonna be there for a few hours, eat dinner, and I promise we'll have the best breakup of all time.
My baby, my princess. Oh, yeah.
I peed a little bit.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
The only time you can come to Christ when the Spirit of God comes.
You ever thought of going to seminary?
Billy Graham.
Gloria a Dios, hermanos. ¿Quién está listo para ser transformado por el poder de sus palabras?
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
The Democratic Party somehow has convinced black people that they're the good guys. Never mind the skanky history of the Democratic Party. That was a party of slavery. There is a whole big cottage industry for racism. If racism went away, a lot of people would be unemployed.
The mob during the Minneapolis riots following the death of George Floyd. A bunch of white thugs, frankly, burning down the city's traditional black and Asian business districts.
They're racist, racist, racist. Everything's racist.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Call in to the ReliefFactor.com studio. It's 888-971-7243. 888-971-7243. I intended to go in depth with you concerning capitalism tonight, but it's just not going to happen. But I am going to get the juices flowing because I will play some audio for you to prep for tomorrow because I really want to talk about capitalism versus socialism. Inevitably, this is where all of this is leading. This is where the left is trying to get us to. And so far, they've done a bang-up job of doing so. Biden's his polling is down significantly. He's polling bad in just about every facet, whether it's the borders, how he's handling the virus, coronavirus. I mean, he's just his job performance in general. I mean, his numbers are underwater, and I read some of those numbers to you earlier. But in one poll, he was down to 39%. Another poll, he was down to 40% approval, and it's not looking good for him. But the left understands this. Nancy Pelosi, she's not intending on coming back after next year, so they are going to. This is a full court press. For my friend that called in from Indiana, listen, we're all going to have to get involved. We're all going to have to make sure that we play a part in primaries. We're going to have to call our congressmen and senators like never before, but we're also going to have to call our local state officials like we never have before. Any protection that they can give against the federal government, they need to be on task, doing so. But continue to make those calls. Continue to make your voices heard. Make sure that you speak to your neighbors about freedom and what it looks like, specific policy. Don't be a jerk about it. But when you get an opportunity to talk to somebody about freedom or a particular issue, do just this. Do just that. Hat tip Sean McConnell. I suspect this is what a lot of this comes from. Pfizer CEO. Normal life will be back within a year, but the vaccinations are necessary. Now, if I'm the CEO of Pfizer, I think I'm going to say the exact same thing. Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla on Sunday agreed with predictions of normal life returning within a year, although he provided a caveat to his declaration, adding people should not be able to live our lives without having vaccinations. I wonder why he would say such a thing. Finally, Moderna CEO said this week that the pandemic is on course to be over in about a year. Do you agree with that? That was a question asked by George Stephanopoulos. And then the Pfizer CEO said, I agree that within a year, I think we will be able to come back to normal life. I don't think that this means that variants will not be continued coming. And I don't think that this means that we should be able to live our lives without having without having vaccinations, basically. So, of course, these major corporations are going to say just that because they're making a buttload of money off of it. Despite the fact that we're seeing and what we're witnessing is that a lot of these vaccines are just not efficacious. They're just not. Listen, they're keeping people supposedly from hospitalizations or serious illness, but I don't even believe that's the case because we're seeing more and more people that are reportedly dying from these vaccines. As a matter of fact, Alex Berenson in his Substack has mentioned that as far as the UK is concerned, the vast majority of people that seem to be dying from COVID right now are the vaccinated. So these people are just a bunch of frauds out to make a dollar, and it's really sad. But I suspect that's where a lot of this comes from. Now, are we really being overrun by COVID-19? Oh, and by the way, hat tip to Will Kirby here. He sent me this a little earlier. 53 cases of highly mutated R1 COVID variant detected in California. So the R1 variant is the new strain of COVID-19 researchers are keeping a close eye on. The CDC identified multiple spike protein mutations in this variant. The R1 variant does carry some mutations that allow it to be less susceptible to the vaccine. Dun, dun, dun. Uh-oh. Here we go. This according to Dr. Joe DeRisi, professor of biochemistry and biophysics at the University of California, San Francisco, and co-president of Chan Zuckerberg BioHub. Dr. DeRisi's team at Biohub is actively sequencing the COVID variant. Luz Pina, how would you compare the Delta variant to the R1 variant? And Dr. DeRossi responds, the Delta variant has quite a few more additional mutations in the spike protein that allows it to spread faster. The R1 variant has mutations that were found in the Gamma and Beta variants. While it does have some of those worrisome mutations, it doesn't have any more mutations than what we've seen before. But here's what's going to happen. With any new variant that comes along, the left is going to cry, what's the word that I'm looking for? The left is going to go berserk. That's what they want to do. By the way, the number to call in to the studio, 888-971-7243, 888-971-7243. Are these hospitals really being overrun by COVID-19? We all heard the headlines. We read the headlines. COVID-19 Delta variant is spreading amongst the unvaccinated. It's a pandemic of the unvaccinated. And that's overwhelming America's hospital systems, fully occupying the ICUs. And how overwhelmed are the hospitals, or just how overwhelmed the hospitals are, do vary from location to location. So let's get into some numbers. Obviously, there will be anecdotal cases of individuals that are being denied care due to a lack of beds, or the high stress on healthcare workers that are facing the influx of patients that are coming into the hospitals. There's no doubt about that. But the Biden's lackeys in the media constantly attack my governor, Ron DeSantis. So, Florida was frequently criticized during the Delta wave because our state saw our daily case numbers surge by about 33%. And that's high. Now, mind you, when you hear these numbers, 33%, you think, okay, man, this was absolutely insane, crazy. Notice what they never give you in the numbers, because our data collection in America sucks compared to the UK and compared to Israel. They never tell you if those are asymptomatic cases. They never tell you if people went into the hospital without COVID, ended up contracting COVID within the hospital system. They never say if these are severe COVID cases. There's not great data collection within the United States. But there's tons of stories that are written about all the overflowing hospitals in the state, and the CDC data shows that hospitalizations more than doubled in August in Florida. But here's what Christina Pushaw reported, and she's the press secretary for Governor Ron DeSantis, and she denied that Florida hospitals were ever under any type of catastrophic strain. And we would hear that all the time from people out here, particularly the mayor in the county that I live in. Man, now I forget his name. Good Lord, I cannot believe that I have forgotten my mayor's name. His wife is in Congress. Anyway, it'll come to me. But our mayor here in Orlando is a very liberal city. Thank God, right on the outskirts, there's plenty conservative pockets that surround me. But Orlando in and of itself, Mayor Jerry Demings. That's who it is. Okay, so Orlando is weird. Thanks, John. Orlando is weird. So Buddy Dyer is the Orlando mayor, and then we have a county mayor. I believe that's how it works. Where Jerry Demings, he's the husband of Congresswoman Val Demings. And the guy, I mean, he loves power. So he used to, former cop, and when he won the mayoral race, I mean, this guy has just been about, I'm going to tell you what you're going to do. I mean, he acts nice and stuff like that. I've met him in person. A nice guy, but when it comes to running things, he's all about the power. He loves the power. He loves telling people what to do. But this press secretary, Ron DeSantis, said hospitals are not overflowing in Florida, have never been. Hospitalizations peaked in mid-August, and the figures have declined steadily since then. We have seen over a 50% reduction in new hospital admissions since the state ran these monoclonal antibodies. We'll talk about that more after the break. This is Carl Jackson in for Larry Elder.
Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
Barack Hussein Obama announces a trade. Now, it's not a trade for Brett Favre from the Falcons to the Packers. It wasn't a trade of Bill Russell to some no-namers. It wasn't a trade of some musical for Babe Ruth. No. It was a trade for the terrorist all-star team from Gitmo, 5 of them, the Fab Five, the killers, for a traitor. Many of you will now remember this quickly. Some of you that are younger that are listening have no memory of this. This was the famous Bo Bergdahl for Gitmo trade that happened in May of 2014.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
Streaming on Salem Now.
The public would be outraged if they knew the truth.
Why do you think our politicians are not on the sidewalk right now talking to you?
Don't have no respect.
The old wall randomly turns into a guardrail, followed by miles of open border. Human trafficking.
That journey is extremely dangerous.
The 7-year-old girl died in the desert.
From the country of India.
A great pillar of the community was killed by a man who had been deported at least twice.
This little urn contains the ashes of my son. His dreams cut short forever.
We're so worried about other countries' problems, and we don't even focus on our own.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
We understand that a plane has crashed into...
The people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Biggest and most costly manhunt in U.S. history.
United States killed Osama bin Laden.
There are reports surfacing that Al-Qaeda has placed a $50,000 bounty on the heads of any U.S. Navy SEALs.
Nobody's going to survive that. There's nobody in that.
This is the single largest loss of life in Afghanistan in a single incident.
Most of them are U.S. Navy SEALs.
We discovered bullets in the bodies of the Navy SEALs. The military threw them away.
More likely than not, that supports a shootout on board.
Anybody out there, we have a fallen angel.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
The only time you can come to Christ, when the Spirit of God comes.
Have you ever thought of going to seminary?
Billy Graham.
Gloria a Dios, hermano. ¿Quién está listo para ser transformado por el poder de su palabra?
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
All right, welcome back to the Larry Elder Show. The number to call in, 888-971-7243, 888-971-7243. We're coming to you live from the ReliefFactor.com studio. But the left, again, the left has put blinders on. They're using issues like CRT and even the vaccine to put on these blinders. And I believe they're intentionally trying to blind. Listen, those of us that are on the right, we see this and we're like, this is crazy. This is insane. These people are taking away our civil liberties. These people are taking away our freedom. How do we fight back? But they have the people on the left. They have Democrats thinking, oh my goodness. We've got to be healthy. We've got to be safe, as Dennis Prager would say. They value safety. Right. And so that's how the left is thinking. So while they put these blinders on, while they get the left so emotionally charged, when it comes to critical race theory. What did you say Will Smith called critical race theory, Sean? Oh, man. Will Smith called critical race theory truth theory. You know how rich that guy? Oh, my God. Man. I like Will Smith, too. He's just wrong on this. For all indications, I hear he's a nice guy. But that's just not truth. Especially, I almost feel like these overwhelmingly rich black people have to make sure that they comply with the status quo when it comes to CRT. But anyway, CRT and the vaccine, they're blinders. Now, they are doing tremendous damage to American culture and to the society. And I do believe ultimately they are an existential threat. But the big dogs that'll destroy the country right away is if this spending bill passes, where basically they destroy capitalism with this $3.5 trillion monstrosity that actually will turn into $6.9 trillion. And hopefully I'll have time to get into that a little bit again this evening, because it's not just the monetary amount that we have to be concerned about. Of course, we have to be concerned about spending our annual deficits and the growing national debt. But more so, we have to be concerned about what's in the bill itself, because they want to fundamentally transform America. So these are one of the things that's extremely important. Another thing that's extremely important that'll fundamentally and is fundamentally changing America are open borders. You have people just flooding in. I'm going to get to a story that Sean sent me earlier about these lace pills, these fentanyl pills coming in. And then another story he sent me where even former President Obama is saying, man, this is unsustainable. We have to get this under control. Now, of course, he's a lefty, so he's advocating for, basically making everybody legal immigrants or immigration reform and whatever his meaning is. I'll get into that a little bit. But listen, we shouldn't do anything as far as illegal. Everybody that's come in illegally, I hope and pray that one day we have the courage to repatriate them. They came in illegally. They need to go bye-bye. I'm sorry. This country is too overwhelmed. Speaking to James Carafano last night, the fact that he said we could potentially be looking at approximately 10 million people coming in within the next year or so, I believe he said, that's not an impossibility, because the Biden administration has already shown what they're willing to do. But let me get back to this issue with COVID, because we are being sold a bill of goods when it comes to COVID. We've had a 50% reduction rate in the hospitals right here in the state of Florida since the state started running these monoclonal antibody treatment sites that started opening up in August. Now, this would destroy the narrative of the left, because they've been saying vaccines, 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 and here you have this monoclonal antibody that isn't necessarily cheap, but it's not as expensive as remdesivir, and people going to the hospital to get remdesivir, and remdesivir isn't even effective. I mean, I guarantee you Fauci and all these people have money just wrapped up into remdesivir. I don't know that for a fact, but I seriously suspect it with Fauci. I'd love to see where his money is invested. So that's why, in my opinion, the Biden administration clamped down on the red states that were getting about 70% of the supply of the monoclonal antibodies. And it's not like the blue states couldn't get them. They didn't want them because they were trying to coerce and they still are. If you look at Hochul, they're still trying to coerce their people to get these vaccines, when there's plenty of therapeutics, including the monoclonal antibody, that can fight back against COVID-19. So listen to this stat. 81% of inpatient beds were in use at 268 hospitals around the state of Florida at the time of this publication, which was about 4 days ago. And then according to the data from the Department of Health and Human Services, nearly 13%, listen to this, 81% of inpatient beds were in use, 268 reporting hospitals in Florida. 13% of those beds were used for COVID-19. But you had Biden's lackeys in the media. COVID-19, COVID-19. The beds are being overwhelmed with COVID-19. The story goes on to report, while both these numbers are above the national rate of 78%, neither is out of line with typical hospital capacities, and both are down from the August peak. This is from Advent Health. Advent Health is a big hospital chain right here locally in Florida and around the state, in Orlando, locally in Orlando. So Advent Health in Florida released a statement in July claiming that the state's high hospitalization numbers were not reason for alarm. They said it is typical for hospitals to have capacity figures in the 90th percentile, even in pre-COVID times. So these numbers do not cause are not cause for concern or alarm. So Advent Health is saying, listen, we can operate at a 90th percentile capacity, and we're good. That's what was happening in Florida, and yet the media was going absolutely cray-cray. And now we know that nearly 13% of the beds were in use for COVID-19. Advent Health went on to say, while we have seen an increase in hospitalizations in Central Florida, it's right where I'm at, over the last few weeks, we still have significantly fewer COVID patients compared to what we saw during the peak. Even during the peak, however, at no point did we reach capacity. Research done prior to COVID-19, the COVID-19 pandemic supports this assessment. A 2013 meta-analysis of 16 studies published by Australian researchers. God almighty, pray for the people in Australia. I've been watching some of the videos of people it looks like a UFC fight, the way that cops are treating some of the people out there. It's totally nuts in Australia right now. So a 2013 meta-analysis of 16 studies published by Australian researchers found indications that optimal ICU capacity is around 70 to 75%. A Northwestern Memorial Healthcare executives found that their hospital average occupancy rate at 9 a.m. fluctuated from between 82 to 92%. So a lot of the numbers that we're seeing in these hospitals, they may be slightly above average, but they're still somewhat normative. While Florida's total hospital capacity is a few percentage points higher than the national average, its ICU capacity is at 87% as of this publication. Remember what the doctor said, 90%. We're good in Florida. We'll be back.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America. You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not.
We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime. I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
We understand that a plane has crashed into...
The people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Biggest and most costly manhunt in U.S. history.
United States killed Osama bin Laden.
There are reports surfacing that Al-Qaeda has placed a $50,000 US bounty on the heads of any U.S. Navy SEALs.
Nobody's going to survive that. There's nobody in that.
This is the single largest loss of life in Afghanistan in a single incident.
Most of them are U.S. Navy SEALs.
We discovered bullets in the bodies of the Navy SEALs. The military threw them away.
More likely than not, that supports a shootout on board.
Anybody out there, we have a fallen angel.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
This is a story of how 1 million children were placed with local foster families through an unlikely alliance between the Chinese government and a British footballer. Parents from all walks of life share their stories of overcoming the one-child policy by taking in orphans. With unprecedented access across the country, this is a unique insight into the lives of the 90s orphans now driving the 21st century's fastest growing economy. This story needs to be told across the world. At a time where there's so much negativity and cynicism, here's proof that a single leap of faith can change the world.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
I grew up poor, which is even worse than being poor.
We would have sandwiches with no meat.
My American dream entailed working hard and making $20,000 a year. But I surpassed that goal and became a corporate CEO.
We'll all be able to say, free at last, free at last.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Welcome back to the Larry Elder Show. Biden lied. This from Senator Blackburn. She's calling for Biden to resign over the Afghanistan debacle. Obama, and this is hat tip to Sean McConnell, open borders unsustainable for the United States. We'll try to get into that a little bit. I do want to play a audio clip for you, actually a couple. I want to just get you primed for tomorrow because I'm not going to have the time to get into socialism versus capitalism like I hope tonight. I still want to cover a couple of stories, including what's happening on the border and these fentanyl-laced pills that are being sent across our borders, not to mention the bioweapon of different variants of COVID-19, like we just mentioned, R1, and anywhere where illegal aliens are being transported to. Isn't it ironic that new COVID numbers are spiking in those particular areas? And again, I shared with you last night that this is deliberate. Let's not pretend anymore that the left isn't trying to destroy this country. Obviously, they want to change the demographics with the illegal aliens coming in. But I'm telling you, 2 more election cycles until we stop the spread. I don't think they mind illegal aliens coming in, just for the simple fact we already have, and California has done this. They've made mail-in voting permanent. They've used COVID-19 to make mail-in voting permanent. And if voter ID isn't required in these particular states, Democrats will get away with cheating forever. So Republicans, conservatives, libertarians, people that are just freedom-minded, sensical Democrats, true liberals maybe, you guys need to fight back wherever you are and make sure that your voting is legit, that you have a voice. Because people like Greasy Gavin Newsom and the Biden administration are fighting to make sure you don't have a voice. But I want to play a couple more audio clips for you because I want to prime you for tomorrow. I want you to understand what the left is trying to do. Nancy Pelosi said this on September 17th. It didn't get much press, but I want to make sure that we talk about it here. Capitalism is God-given. I want you guys to go to the Bible, for God's sakes. Read scripture, Matthew 25. God talks about the parable of the talents. He gives one person 1 talent, another 5, another 10. The person with 5 talents invests and grows his investment. The person with 10 invests and grows his investment. The person with 1 hides his talent in the ground because he was scared to lose it. And Jesus was pretty upset, upset with the guy. It talks about, that's a story, or parable of capitalism. It's a story of investment. It's a story of hard work. And the left is totally trying to destroy America by leading us to socialism, trying to break you down. And they are fighting hard right now. So we care about the polls, and we should care about the polls, but the left doesn't. They're trying to push us into socialism. Here's an audio clip from Nancy Pelosi approximately a couple of weeks ago that didn't get much play, and it should have. Audio clip number 1, please.
But I can say in America, capitalism is our system, it is our economic system, but it has not served our economy as well as it should. And so what we want to do is not depart from that, but to improve it and to make sure that it serves. Adam Smith wrote 2 books. He wrote Wealth of Nations, and then he wrote another book about principles and the rest, about how in an economy, in a society, how to meet the needs of people. Now, he wasn't doing it really from compassion, but from practicality. So you cannot have a system where the success of some springs from the exploitation of the workers and springs from the exploitation of the environment and the rest. And we have to correct that.
Okay, so this lady supposedly wants to improve capitalism. And again, I'm just giving you a snippet, and we'll get into this more deeply tomorrow. But this is her idea, along with Biden. And I'll get right back to the story on the border. So forgive me, I'm just hopping and skipping around, and I'll take your calls in just a second here as well. But I mind you that this woman, here's what she wants: higher revenues for growing the size of the IRS, $266 billion. She wants to boost in long-term combined capital gains taxes from 29 to 48%, which will cost $322 billion to taxpayers. If the bill is enacted, investors seeking lower capital gains taxes could find them in communist China. We'll be back with more on the other side. This is Carl Jackson in for Larry Elder.
Hi, I'm Nancy Pelosi from San Francisco. I'm a chocoholic.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
I would say that this is now on track, Peter, to be the largest airlift in U.S. history. And that is bringing American citizens out. It is bringing our Afghan partners out. It is bringing allies out. So no, I would not say that is anything but a success.
Okay.
As the kids would say, OMG. Yeah, we have an extensive vetting process. Sure we do. I've been to the border, lady. No, you don't. No, you don't. But again, back to Kamala Harris. There she is trying to escape this mess by hiding out in Singapore. But there are reporters there, too.
To that end, we have seen a successful drawdown of the embassy.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
I would like my fellow conservatives, the majority of whom wanted to leave Afghanistan, to be as intellectually honest as I demand the left is. You must say, I am for the Taliban taking over Afghanistan. If you do not say that, you are a conservative who is not being honest. You cannot say, I am for leaving Afghanistan, but I am against the Taliban taking over Afghanistan. Then you are deluding yourself, and a conservative should never do that. That should be the monopoly of the left. It's equivalent to men give birth, okay? To deny that the Taliban, that you are giving Afghanistan over to the Taliban if you leave.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
talk to our millions of listeners across the country about your plans for Afghanistan, the conditions-based withdrawal, and what we have witnessed, the disaster we've witnessed in the last 3 weeks?
Maybe the greatest, most embarrassing disaster we've ever witnessed in our country. The difference was first of all, it was the opposite. It was the exact opposite. We knocked out ISIS. When I took over, ISIS was all over the Middle East. We knocked out 100% of the ISIS caliphate. I notice now they call it ISIS-K, so you'll explain that. But we knocked out 100% of the ISIS caliphate. We took out al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Fiance? No, I can't be your fiance.
You're gonna go. You're gonna be my fiance, and you're gonna be the most amazing, fascinating, most successful man ever. We're only gonna be there for a few hours, eat dinner, and I promise we'll have the best breakup of all time.
My baby, my princess. Oh, yeah.
Pete a little bit.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Of Africa is rising, and some of Africa is stuck. The question is whether the rising bit will pull the rest of Africa up, or whether the other Africa will weigh the continent down. Which will it be? Stakes here aren't just about them. Imagine for a second this last global recession, but without the economic growth of China and India, without the hundreds of millions of newly minted middle-class folks who now buy American and European goods. Imagine that. Think about the last 5 years. Rockstar preaches capitalism. Wow. Sometimes I hear myself and I just can't believe it. But commerce is real. That's what you're about here. It's real. Aid is just a stopgap. Commerce, entrepreneurial capitalism takes more people out of poverty than aid. Of course, we know that.
All of this, everything we're experiencing from the left is about destroying capitalism. You know, and it's a very hard fight. There's no doubt about it. We have an uphill battle. I'm not going to lie to you as conservatives. How do you persuade people that Santa Claus is bad when it comes to socialism, especially if they don't understand the fundamental principles of managing money? You know, if someone knows how to manage money, if someone saves and knows how to save, spend to enjoy life but not overspend, live within their means and budget, socialism they get it. But the vast majority of Americans, I would say, probably don't know how to use their money advantageously. I mean, it took me a long time to learn, quite frankly. So it's one of those things where, man, how do you fight it? I do think that I have an answer. I mean, the left always appeals to the freebies. They appeal to Santa Claus. Honestly, I think we have to appeal to the soul. It doesn't sound sexy. It's not as fun, but it's more meaningful and it's more purposeful. And I think that's the way that we have to inspire people. We have to appeal to their souls. We have to appeal to their God-given talents. Appeal to their real purpose. CRT isn't a purpose, even though the left is trying to help or persuade people that it is. So we'll get into that a little more. We'll get into that in depth tomorrow. We're going to hash it out between socialism and capitalism. Before I get into these couple of last stories, let's take a couple of quick calls because I want to go into these other stories as far as I can with the time remaining. Let's go to Joel in South Carolina. Joel, welcome to the Larry Elder Show. You've got the mic.
Yeah, I just had one question. Why is this mandate being applied to the nurses in the hospital, but nobody's saying anything about the doctors in the hospital?
I got to be honest with you. My assumption is that the doctors, many of the doctors have been vaccinated and overwhelmingly so. But I really do think, if doctors were to rise up, that would make a bigger fight. The problem is we have a lot of wimps in the medical field. I mean, these guys are, smart guys, and they make a lot of money, and they don't want to upset the apple cart. And I suspect that a lot of these guys, just like others, have been brainwashed by the left while they were in school. I just think that we're missing a lot of courage, and unfortunately, a lot of doctors that do have courage are being censored and silenced in media. And I think as a result of that causes other doctors that are a little less, or that are wimpy, to just kind of stand back and go along to get along. But it's a good question. But I suspect that doctors are getting the vaccine. I listened to some locally on radio that are good guys, some even conservative, and they have been vaccinated, but don't necessarily recommend it for all people. So at least they're honest. Let's go to Lisa in Tampa Bay. Lisa, welcome to the Larry Elder Show. You've got the mic.
Thank you. You're doing a great job, and I missed Larry's Friday night quizzes. But, however, for example, a lot of people can't get the vaccine because they're allergic to it. Like my brother, who joined the military in 73. And he's in his late 60s now, and his doctor said, no, because you took all the virus vaccines back in the day, you're now allergic to everything. So some people are exempt from it, and I'm just very curious to know why they can't take exceptions. And thank you.
Hey, thank you for being out there, Lisa, because this is all about control. They can take exceptions. Just many, especially those on the left and some of these major corporations simply don't want to. This is a power grab. This is about compliance, and unfortunately, a lot of Americans are falling trapped to this. And unfortunately, many corporations, if there's a corporation that falls for this nonsense, if you can stay away from them, if you can not purchase their products, I would recommend you do so. All right, let me get on to this story because I think this is very important. There's a couple of stories here. I'm not sure that I'll have time to cover them both, but one from AM Greatness, a report that Mexican drug cartels are trying to intentionally provoke more clashes between the illegal migrants and the Border Patrol so that Biden will force more agents off the line. We saw the lie that he participated with the rest of media in saying that these Border Patrol agents on horseback were whipping Haitians when nothing could be further from the truth. And now, as a result, what we have coming across the border are not only illegal aliens that are changing the demographics of America, but essentially we have people that are bioweapons, right, that are spreading different variants of COVID. It's pretty amazing. But now I go to this story that we'll get to more in depth, or we'll get more in depth after the break. But with overdose deaths soaring, DEA warns about fentanyl meth-laced pills. Guys, we are in warfare. Whether you realize it or not, the left, and I suspect China and other countries as well, are waging a war against the United States that we're not paying attention to right at our borders. This is Carl Jackson in for Larry Elder. We'll be back.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
If you can stop an earthquake, doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
There's an old brown battered notebook in my office at work. You have to find it, take it, and keep it hidden at all costs.
If we are to build the superhuman, we must first eliminate those who are flawed.
People are created equally. All of downtown, the high-rises were built on rollers to withstand horizontal shakes. A vertical quake this size could collapse half of downtown.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
The public would be outraged if they knew the truth.
Why do you think our politicians are not on the sidewalk right now talking to you?
Don't have no respect.
The old wall randomly turns into a guardrail, followed by miles of open border.
Human trafficking, go.
That journey is extremely dangerous.
The 7-year-old girl died in the desert.
From the country of India.
A great pillar of the community was killed by a man who had been deported at least twice.
This little urn contains the ashes of my son. His dreams cut short forever.
We're so worried about other countries' problems, and we don't even focus on our own.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
I grew up poor, which is even worse than being poor.
Our lunch consisted of whatever my mother could scrape together from the dinner the night before. We would have sandwiches with no meat.
My American dream entailed working hard and making $20,000 a year. But I surpassed that goal and became a corporate CEO. Put in an economic growth plan called 999.
We'll all be able to say, free at last, free at last.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Have to worry about coming across the border. For one, listen, Laura Logan has been doing a great job of Fox News covering this stuff. But what we have essentially are illegal aliens coming across the border, not only changing the demographics of the United States of America, but also becoming bioweapons, if you will, and unintentionally. I understand that people want to come here, but if they're spreading COVID and perhaps different variants of COVID and it's spiking in certain areas, what do you think the left is going to do? They're going to try to clamp down. They're going to try to use COVID-19 to slow the spread. And then you have this story, hat tip Sean McConnell from the Washington Post. The Drug Enforcement Administration issued a public warning Monday that a growing number of fake pills bought online are laced with potentially lethal amounts of synthetic opioid fentanyl, and blamed social media sites for not doing more to protect their users. We decided to do this because the amounts are staggering. This, according to the DEA administrator Ann Milgram. She said this in an interview with the Post. We are in the midst, in my view, of an overdose crisis, and the counterfeit pills are driving so much of it. And think about this. How many people are sitting home online, or were during these stringent lockdowns, growing depressed, maybe got into these drugs, and just fell dead as a result of it? A couple of times, Sean has sent stories to me as well as Forgotten Men, and I'm looking at more and more of these actors and comedians dying of pills and drugs that are laced with fentanyl. And, listen, this stuff is insane. I believe China has waged a war on us using fentanyl, and we're paying for it with these open borders. This story goes on to say the U.S. saw a record number of drug overdose deaths last year, more than 93,000. That's an increase in 1 year. In 1 year, that's an increase of 30% from 2019. And I'm sorry, guys, I'm not going to be able to take any more calls. I appreciate you being out there. Robert, Joel, I appreciate you being out there. Officials said the DEA hasn't issued such a public safety alert since 2015, when the agency warned that agents were seeing an alarming amount of heroin laced with fentanyl. Fentanyl, even in much smaller amounts, is deadlier than street heroin. The new public safety alert warns Americans that counterfeit pills, often sold on social media or e-commerce websites, increasingly contain fentanyl or sometimes methamphetamines, posing health risks beyond the dangers of buying prescription pills. I'll get into more of this tomorrow, because we are in crisis. We are in a war, and Biden is playing a part in this. This is going to kill more and more Americans. Guys, until tomorrow, don't grow weary doing good. This is Carl Jackson sitting in for Larry Elder. See you mañana.